About the movie Suspense. It was directed in 1913 by Louis Weber. It's a silent film in black and white, but it is ahead of its time. For 1913, this movie was really laying some groundwork. The two most notable things that I get from this movie are the camera angles, which astounded me for the time. I did not think that they had such advancements. But also what it gave to the horror genre, because many things that you see in suspense are a lot of things that you see in horror movies today. Even though the horror genre has shifted a lot since 1913, there are still so many things that you see, so many commonalities. To briefly summarize what Suspense is about, it's about a woman and a baby who are left at home alone because her husband is at work. Well, the family also has a maid who lives there, but shortly after the film begins, she ends up writing a note saying that she's leaving. She can't be in such a lonesome rural place happily. So she leaves and puts the key under the mat as she walks away. As she walks away, a man sees her leaving this nice house and he goes up to see if anyone is there. When he goes up there, he sees that the mother and the baby are in the house alone with no man. So he thinks it's the perfect opportunity to commit a robbery. And so the woman realizes that this robber is outside of her house and she calls her husband. She calls her husband and he races home. He steals a car from someone on the street so he can get there as fast as he possibly can, but the police are chasing him because technically now he's a robber. But all the while, the woman and the baby are running up the stairs trying to get away from this man, and the man conveniently finds the key under the mat of the back door that the maid left. So he takes the key, unlocks the door, and goes in. He's looking for food, he's taking his time to see if there's any jewelry in any of the drawers, but he also grabs a knife. And he grabs a knife and he starts heading up the stairs, just slowly making his way towards the mother and the baby. All the while, the husband is racing there, followed by the police. He gets to the house, the husband sprints up there to the door, and the police are following him. Well, as soon as the husband opens the door, the robber is there with a knife and he has to fight him off a little bit, and then the police rush in and they capture the robber and take him into custody. The husband goes upstairs to find his wife and child, and he sees that they're safe and all is well. The man whose car was stolen gets his car back, they drop the charges against the husband, and like I said, the robber is taken into custody and no one is hurt. Like I said before, two of the most notable things I got from the movie Suspense are the camera angles and the commonalities between the horror genre then and the horror genre now. I'm going to start off talking about the camera angles. For its time, Suspense was very, very advanced, at least in my opinion. With the phone call that the husband and the wife make, it's a tri-layered camera angle. So in the main triangle, you see the husband phoning his wife, and in the smaller portion up top, you see the wife trying to phone her husband, explaining what's happening. And then in the other upper hand, you see the robber outside of the house trying to listen in on their conversation to know what's going on. So the fact that they were able to cut all three of these camera angles together and give you the simultaneous action between all three main people of this film, I think was very impressive because I didn't know that that was a capability. Also, during the pursuit of the husband when he stole the car and the police chasing him, so he filmed through this car angle on the side so you can see the cop car in the back. And when you see the cop car, you have to think about how perfectly everyone had to be lined up and how perfectly that camera had to sit for them to be able to capture everything that was going on in that side rear view mirror. I just thought that the talent and the skill that must have gone into that made it very, very challenging, which made it amazing that they were able to make something like that work for a film that was made in 1913. Aside from that, there's also the camera view, which was very personal, I feel like, because it almost drew the viewers in as if they were the ones experiencing their house being broken into. Because in one of the scenes, you see the wife looking down out of her window, and when she looks down, you get a full, very close view of the robber's face, so you can just feel how panicked she must have been knowing that that was right there and was about to enter her home, and he's looking up with this like this scary, intense view that just adds to the horror of the film. And so I really liked that, and I thought it was interesting that they used a film angle like that. One of my favorite angles that has to do with this film is when the camera is set at the top of the stairs, and the robber is coming up the stairs, and it is him getting closer and closer and closer until he finally walks past the camera, but it like is zooming in on his face. And King had said that the suspense is what's leading up to the door, because you don't know what's behind that door, so you're making up all these scenarios in your head about how bad or how dark or how scary whatever's behind that door is going to be. But when you open that door, you know what it is. So I was always told that it's like the staircase leading up to that door that is the suspense, and that camera angle really gives that idea that him coming up and you don't know what's going to happen after he passes that camera is what creates so much suspense in this film, hence why it's called Suspense. So I really love that camera angle, and I thought that was a brilliant idea to incorporate into this film. Like I said earlier, the second most notable thing I got from this movie was the commonalities between the horror genre in 1913 and the commonalities between the horror genre today. But when I say horror genre today, I mean more of the 2000s, 2010s movies, because most of the horror genre that is prevalent right now is more of the get in your head, mess you up psychologically kind of horror movies. So I'm talking about a little bit older than now. But the perfect setup for a horror movie is always a house that is left alone, decrepit, in a rural area by itself at the end of a dirt road, or the last cabin in the woods, or something like that. And that is exactly what Suspense uses. It is a house in the middle of nowhere on the end of a dirt road that has no one nearby to help. So they set up that scene perfectly, and that is used in so many horror movies that have came out within the past 10 years. That's very, very common practice. My favorite part of the movie was when the robber was breaking in the door with his hand, trying to reach for the handle on the door so that he could get in. And I think it's my favorite part of the movie just because it's such a cliche thing now, but back then it was probably a pretty new concept, using something like that to break in the door, and it just adds to the horror and the oh my gosh, he's about to get him feeling. And it just so closely, to me, mirrors The Shining when he's breaking in the door trying to get to his wife. Obviously, The Shining is pretty dramatic compared to what Suspense was, but just seeing those two things play out hand in hand, it just fits perfectly. And again, I said Stephen King was the one who said that when you're walking up the stairs, that's the most suspenseful part. That's what makes whatever's behind the door scary, because you don't know what's going to happen behind the door. And then Stephen King using that breaking in of the door after I had seen it in Suspense, it just all feels like it falls into place. And a lot of these horror genre films are made based off the others and what they do in the other ones. Also, the man stumbling upon the key conveniently. That is just like every other horror movie, because when you watch a horror movie that's been made within the last 10 years, there's a lot of running. Somehow, the main characters are always running from the killer or the person or the monster, whatever is that is trying to get them. And somehow, conveniently, your main character always falls down when they're in the hunt. So it's just using that cliche and that convenient setup that is seen throughout all horror films. I just love seeing how they mirror each other, even though Suspense was so long ago, and movies where they have the same convenient problems happening, the way they mirror each other to me is really interesting. But also, there's the cutting of the phone cord. So the woman is on the phone with her husband while he's at work, and it has those intertitles where it says something along the lines of, and now he's going in, and then it cuts off and uses those dashes to represent the silence that happens on the phone call. And right after that, you see the man snipping that cord line. So you can see that simultaneous action of she was on the phone, but he was cutting the cord. So it all happened at once, and they laid it out for you so you can know that. And the way that they use that is something that you see in so many other movies. I mean, how many times have you watched a movie, seen them pick up the phone to call for help and it's going beep, 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 because they got the phone cord cut. You watch a horror movie and so many convenient things happen that seem so overused, and they are overused. I mean, they were happening in 1913 and they still happen in horror movies today, which I love because I love seeing how far it's come, but seeing the camera angles that look so new then and being amazed at how they were able to do that then and seeing what we have now, it's crazy to think how far we've come.